Hey friends, it's Melvin. Thanks for tuning into this episode. Here's just a few quick things I wanted to notify you guys about before we get started. First up, very soon, new episodes will be releasing Wednesday mornings rather than Tuesday. So don't panic if you don't see a new episode on Tuesday. Just wait a little longer and you'll see it in your feed. Second, we've introduced a mailbag. Check those show notes and toward the bottom you'll see a mailbag link. You'll then be able to text us any questions you might have about movies, the movie industry, or any movie/Christian related questions you might have. Then we'll respond in a future episode, so send us your questions now. Up next, Patreon polls, which are available to Patreon supporters at the $3 tier or higher, have been updated. Supporters can now suggest films or shows to be reviewed at the end of each month. The two most liked submissions will become the options for the Patreon poll, so if you want to hear us talk about your favorite movie or show, join our Patreon and start campaigning. And lastly, whether you're a new or longtime listener, please consider writing a review or rating the Cinematic Doctrine podcast on iTunes and Spotify. Apart from financially supporting on Patreon, these are the two most helpful ways to support the show. And that's it. Enjoy the episode. You're listening to Cinematic Doctrine. So I've kind of taken a break from watching Arrested Development because it was getting annoying. There was sort of this point where I was watching it and thinking, I think it's too soon for this rewatch. I feel like I just watched this 2 weeks ago, and that's actually probably accurate. So since it's been several months since I've watched The Office, I decided to put that on because I have it on my Vudu, at least the first 2 seasons. And it's been really fun rewatching it, but it reminded me of what I thought would be a great season 10 opener if there ever was a season 10 opener. I want to tell you what I think is the only way that season 10 can open. Daniel, can I tell you it?
Sure.
He says with reluctance. I literally think, and I've thought about this just because I don't know if we ever need a season 10. I know that people pine for it, but I've thought the only way you can open season 10 of The Office is it's a wide shot of a hospital. It zooms in like it does. And then you start hearing Will Ferrell talk, and it's D'Angelo waking up from his coma that he gets into after falling off from the basketball net. And it's him just talking about the experience of having a coma and how he's excited to get back to work and just sort of the random hijinks of his character. And then when the Office music is playing, the intro song, it's just scenes of hospital life. So someone replacing the pan that you pee into when you can't get out of bed and flipping D'Angelo over, or just an accidental flatline. So a bunch of doctors run in to take care of him, and then it just turns out he's fine. And then the opening, the end of it when it does the do 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 do, and it says The Office. You see The Office proper and D'Angelo standing there. And then I thought it would just be funny if someone ran him over because they weren't expecting him to be there. And then the episode proper is about Phyllis killed somebody on their way to work. Who was it? I don't know. And then it's just, that's it. D'Angelo dies in the first episode of season 10. The entire thing is no one knew who it was. Insurance says it wasn't Phyllis's fault for some reason. And they're thinking, should we feel bad because someone killed somebody? And you can replace it with Phyllis or to somebody else. But that's what I feel like would be the only way you could start episode 1, season 10 of The Office. And I've really tried to figure out if there's another way to do it, but there's not. And that's what I want. That's what I want to see if this ever exists. What do you think, Dan? What does that sound? Does that sound marginally interesting?
Oh, I checked out.
Well, so did D'Angelo after 3 episodes.
Yeah, the minute you're how Will Ferrell got into a coma after the basketball hoop, just my brain just totally.
I just think it would be the perfect out of left field. Everyone's so excited to see Michael Scott again, and everyone's so excited to see Jim and Pam, and it's just the opening scenes are D'Angelo in a hospital bed, waking up. To me, that's the perfect deep cut. You have an actor that people sort of a character that I think is woefully underutilized and has some of the best lines in the show, Like when they go to Meredith's house and he just says like, this reminds me of Katrina. Like it's just like it's or when he's supposed to be learning how to do public speaking and he just asks Jim, so where were you on 9/11? Like it's just like all these perfect just golden lines. And I'm like, that's gotta be how the season 10 opens, is he's just in a hospital bed waking up from his coma. But anyways, I wanted to mention that. The Office season 10 intro. That's all.
I'm glad you got that off your chest, Melvin.
Because I just keep thinking about it and I'm like, there's just I've tried to think of I've literally had this internal like match, kind of like how Shang-Chi fights Abomination, or doesn't even fight him because they totally teased that he would. But in this movie, how there is like, yeah, trying to have these competing intros for a season 10 open episode 1. And I'm like, nothing's funnier than just like, here's Will Ferrell again for no reason. Yeah, we got him out of his, like, I don't know, early retirement. We got the dust off of his jokes and brought him in. That would be great. That's all I want. But anyways, Shang-Chi, dude, I guess we saw this. We saw this weekend. Did you see it on Thursday?
I saw it Friday morning. So
Friday morning?
Yeah.
Why?
So
before work?
Well, it's just like it's cheaper, and typically like nice. Either it's like a emptier theater or it's only people who really want to see it. So you get more respectful audiences.
And comparatively to your Black Widow screening, I'm sure that it was very nice to go early morning.
It was much nicer to go where there weren't kids next to me talking. Yeah, Shang-Chi, like, the one weird thing, and if you follow us on Twitter, I shared this experience with you, is that when I sat down in theater, I was the third person in the theater. The two people before me were a couple. They were sitting in front of me, and they had the most bizarre argument I've ever heard in a theater, which was I'm assuming they're a couple. I don't know if they're married or dating or what have you. I think they might have been married because it was such a weird argument that I feel like only people who've been like together for a while could have it, where the guy kept saying like, you better go to the bathroom before the movie starts. You better go to the bathroom before the movie starts.
What?
And she kept saying, when does the movie start? What time is it? When does the movie start? And he just kept going, you better go to the bathroom. They went back and forth for a while. They started before the screen turned on. Then the Maria Menounos was on the screen throughout the whole thing before the trailer started. They did that constantly. And then she was like, I don't know, I have to go, but like, when does the movie start? When does the movie start? He kept getting angrier. He was just like, you better go where the movie starts.
What? Men need to be stopped.
I almost piped in. It was like, movie starts in 15 minutes. You know,
it literally starts 20. Once the trailer starts, you got 20 minutes.
Yeah, like I mean, that's what made me so weird is like, either he's had this experience before where she just goes all the time or something, or she's never been to a movie theater before, because like, I feel like it's common knowledge that you have like the dumb stuff beforehand where you get like extended behind the scenes looks at like Showtime shows you've never heard of. And then there's like 15 minutes of trailers. Like, I feel like that's common. So like, does she just not know? And like, is this like an ongoing thing where every time they go to the movie, she just gets up all the time? And then she never went to the bathroom. She didn't go before the movie. Did she go during the movie? It was just a non-issue. It was so strange. And then, I don't know. I was like, yes. I'm so movie theaters are back, baby. I miss this. Like, I'm so glad I came to this early morning screening.
I love being charged so much money just to sit in the theater to get COVID and also have a bad time at the same time.
I paid $7 for a soda, and I went to the bathroom. None of the faucets, none of the sinks had soap, which I feel like is something you should have during a pandemic.
It's amazing how bathrooms in movie theaters are just objectively the worst bathrooms I'll ever visit in my entire life. I have gone to public restrooms. I have even used urinals that are not urinal. Of course, I've used a urinal, but like I've used what are they called? Porta potties. I've used porta potties that are objectively cleaner than movie theater bathrooms. But yeah, movie theaters, every time I go, they are just disgusting. They never have what they need. I don't know what it is about people and bathrooms and the fact that they just stop learning how to care about the world and their fellow man, that you can just, and I feel like this is something that also probably happens in women's bathrooms too, but like people will just like make a disgusting mess and then leave.
We need to interview one of these people. We need to get a podcast together. We interview people who ruin bathrooms.
You mean like in Nathan For You when there's like, what is it? We're gonna let you. It was a public it was a bathroom in a restaurant, and they said people can use it for free, but you need to be advertised to. And so people can use they go in to use the bathroom. And when they sit down, there's this just bright LED screen on the back of the door, and it's shining in their face, advertising about the food that they have. And then also it's filming them so that they could get the reaction. And then as they come out of the stall, Nathan's standing there with a clipboard and says, are you comfortable if we use your reaction? And they're like, you were filming me while I went to the bathroom. It's so funny. But yeah, I would love to I'd love to catch someone in the act and go, excuse me, why are you peeing on the side of the toilet?
Well, I meant more like we have like a sit down confrontational interview, 60-minute style, but we could also scare people in the bathroom if that's what you want to do.
And you can have like an action replay on the back screen, and it's like a 3D animated person peeing into a toilet bowl, and this is what you did, and he's like aiming at the side of the wall and like just turning around, doing like flips,
power,
and then
right?
This is what you should do, and it's just a man gingerly sitting down on the toilet, and you have to make sure it's as graphic as possible just to let them know this is what you look like. Like, oh my goodness. I don't know. I think maybe it is a power thing where like I feel strong when I pee on the side of the toilet and let it sit there.
Well, just like
someone else has to clean that.
Yeah,
up.
in fact, someone else has. It's like not your responsibility, so you feel like, like I don't have to clean this, or whatever. Or
this is weird.
Or maybe there's people who don't use the bathroom because they're so gross they don't use the bathroom at home. Maybe they're just like, I can't do this in my own home. This is disgusting. I have to. So they have to leave
theater. The house to go. Oh yeah.
So,
yeah.
I will say that at the theater I went to, there was another set of bathrooms like in an area, like because like places are trying to like section off parts of their establishments because of the pandemic or whatever. Yeah. So I went to like a bathroom near theaters they weren't using. And not only were they super clean, there's one that was like, it was like a handicap stall that had its own like sink and mirror. It was like a mini bathroom inside a bathroom. And it was like, and the soap worked and everything. I was like, wow. Like, it's like, I felt like I found like a hidden area in a video game. Yeah.
It's the high life. Yeah. We will walk the long distance to go to the bathrooms that are not near the theater that just exited, because you're going to stand in line. It's going to smell. You're going to have that one guy that's talking to all of his friends peeing. Yeah. And it's just like, I can't be around this.
What you think of the movie?
Yeah.
It's just like, wait till the parking lot. We have a civilization.
It's just really bad. It's bad. So Shang-Chi though was kind of decent. I guess we should start talking about it. I feel like I should introduce some movies every now and then. So I guess I'll go ahead and introduce this one. Yeah. So we've been kind of waiting to see more Marvel movies that are, I guess, just different from the usual bread and butter of just to get to the prime of it, just stereotypical white guy with powers doing things. And so it's kind of nice to have like almost a movie where every single actor is not European. I think that's fairly accurate, except for one character, which we will talk about later because regarding spoilers. But yeah, just being able to see a cast of, I believe everyone who was cast was Chinese. Could you fill that in for me, or were there some?
Yeah, to my best of my understanding, it was a mostly Chinese cast. The main mixture is that you had some people are like native to China, like the guy who plays the Mandarin is like a super well respected Hong Kong actor, so he's in tons of stuff in China. And then you have some people like Simu Liu and Aquafina, who are, they're Chinese by descent, but they're, born and raised in the United States. Aquafina got to start making like rap videos on YouTube in New York, for example. But yeah, everyone is, 99.9% of the cast is Chinese.
Yeah, which is really great. And I think that it's great to mention. I mean, it's not plot related to mention something. So like when I'm talking metatextual about like, it's a movie that's not just a bunch of white dudes. But it's nice to have Disney kind of move beyond that and to trust that like, yes, we are not all horrible people who will only see movies that Ike Perlmutter kind of felt like people would do, which is only white guys, no women, no Asians, no black people, because he was very problematic. So I just wanted to get that there because I think that's really important. But as for the movie itself, Shang-Chi, whose English name, the name he gives himself is Sean, is sort of just living in, I don't know, I guess it was New York City or was it San Francisco? I feel like it looked like San Francisco because there was a windy road that looks pretty prime, but it doesn't matter. It's cookie cutter American city, number 12. And he's a valet with his friend who's Aquafina. And at some point, very early actually in the movie, they're on a bus ride, and it's the scene from the trailer you'll recognize where he's fighting on a bus, which was, I'll just say right out the bat, was my favorite scene in terms of fight scenes in the movie, because you could see things. It felt like it was calling back to other good martial arts or fighting hand-to-hand combat scenes. There was a tracking shot that reminded me of a great fight scene in Old Boy. So that was great. As they're fighting, there's this mention of give us this pendant. And so begins the complicating incident of he and his sister have these pendants that their mother gave to them that basically says, if you have this, you always have a place to come home. And it's a pretty significant reminder because in terms of their history and lineage, Shang-Chi's father is the leader of the Ten Rings, which is a big kind of gang. I would guess you could call it like an international gang, because it's not. Yeah, they pretty much set the scene that the Ten Rings. This is a massive thing that has influenced culture for ever. I did find it annoying that they're showing that over time, and then they start telling us it's 1995 and present day, even though they were so artfully showing us that it was different time periods without having to have text show up on the screen. You might as well just make it Comic Sans if you're just going to consider me not that smart enough to figure it out. And alongside this international gang is his dad carries these 10 rings, and they are these awesome, powerful weapons that give you eternal life. And so his character has basically lived forever. They kind of they say 1,000 years, they imply 10 lifetimes. And his dad is trying to get these pendants for a particular thing. Simultaneously, Shang-Chi and his sister's mom was a kind of like a guardian for a special land called Ta Lo. And his father desperately wanted to conquer this land until he fell in love with the guardian, this woman, and the two had Shang-Chi and his sister. I guess to get further, kind of gets into both major and minor spoilers, because the whole premise is kind of built on his father wanting to get back to Ta Lo, wherever this home is, and then Shang-Chi confronting his past as his mother and father are two wildly different figures who you can kind of argue are good and bad, and him wanting to be his own person, but also having to reconcile a lot of other stuff. Alongside that, in terms of not just subplot, but sub-theming, there's a lot of family discussion. There's a lot of learning one's lineage and who you are in the midst of all of that, which I really enjoy because the movie has some good Eastern philosophy, not in the sense of not triggering the Christians who are listening in terms of dangerous philosophy, but more in the sense of worldview of how you see who you are in terms of your own family. And that plays into a lot of the story. And then also just in terms of other cool stuff that I like that's in more Eastern stories. There's a lot of training in this movie, which is a big thing. One of my favorite things in Dragon Ball is that there's so many sequences of training and characters having to get stronger, as opposed to the more Western ideal of just you were born with greatness, which I think is very tiresome. It's nice to see people become stronger and become better and be confronted with things that they don't know. So Shang-Chi having to do training in particular sections. He's very gifted, but to know that he had to train before then and then later on in the movie has to train more is all stuff I really like. But that's sort of both the introduction to the movie and a bit of a cookie cutter kind of example of my experience with the movie. Before we go ahead and hear Dan's thoughts, here is your friendly neighborhood call to action. Hey there, it's your friendly neighborhood call to action. Just checking in on you. Hope you're doing all right. I'm just stopping by to say, if you enjoy the show, you can always subscribe and write a review for Cinematic Doctrine. There's iTunes, Podchaser, basically anywhere you listen. You can give us a shout out with a thumbs up, 5 stars, gripping positivity. Or if you hate the show, you can say that too.
Wait, what? What are you saying? Why are you saying that?
Well, I'm not going to tell them what to do, Ted. They're free to do what they want. Our analytics say we got a lot of listeners in the US, and they love their freedoms. And you're also free to check out our Twitter. Very active there. We host polls, memes. There's also the Cinematic Doctrine Facebook group called Cinematic Doctrine Facebook Group. If you want to join, just answer the questions, read the rules, and tell them the podcast sent you. Also, you should check out our website. Some really cool stuff there. Editorials, written reviews for movies we haven't had time to cover. Always check out cinematicdoctrine.com when you get the chance. Oh, Ted also told me I shouldn't forget to mention the Patreon. Something about you can support us or something? Wait, Ted, I thought this was like a hobby thing. You want me to
expand Cinematic Doctrine. You know this already.
Right. Yeah, I forgot. I'm the one who put all this together. Yeah, Cinematic Doctrine has a Patreon. For as low as $3 a month, you can gain access to exclusive content like The Pre-Show, which features free-form and Christian-friendly discussions on all kinds of topics, as well as influence the podcast. That's right, each month you get to vote on a movie we discuss on the show. Previous movies our lovely Patreon supporters have chosen are To All the Boys I've Loved Before, Hamilton, Onward, and American Gospel Christ Alone. Huh, you guys have good taste. Anyways, I gotta run, so I'll see you guys later. So Dan, yeah, what did you think of Shang-Chi? How was your? It sounds like your theater experience was better. So I'm sure your enjoyment of the movie was at least marginally better too than Black Widow.
Yeah, man. I don't know if it's just because the big Marvel movie I saw before this is Black Widow, which felt formless and shapeless and completely lacking in any sort of identity.
This movie, I kept thinking back to Black Widow, and I was like, it just. I almost wonder if Shang-Chi's not going to make as much money because people are like, man, Black Widow was such a letdown. Why would I go see
Maybe
Shang-Chi?
Marvel's done,
Yeah, this was, anyways, go ahead.
So to start with, this is very much my jam, not just because it's filled with Asian people, but because I have made it no secret on the show that I'm a huge fan of martial arts and action movies.
Yeah.
And one of the first things I saw that made me excited about the movie way back, if you remember when we talked about this, I believe on a Trailer Talk, or if we just did it in a related discussion.
I don't know if we actually covered it on Trailer Talk, but we definitely talked about it. Because we've talked about how the trailer didn't look very good. That's about it.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's many other comic book movies where Shang-Chi just came up at some point. But the fact that David Callahan was one of the writers, who is a writer on things like The Expendables, kind of made me a little excited. Not because Expendables is a great movie or anything, but because I was like, yeah, again, the fact they had an action movie writer on there, and then the fact they got like a really good director, the guy who directed this, his name's like David something Cretton. Yeah, Destin Daniel Cretton.
Yes,
who directed things like Just Mercy, so he has a good pedigree as far as just like dramatic, like
in drama. Yeah.
So I was like pretty excited, and so the opening action scene of this movie immediately sold me on the entire thing. And for the record, I'm not a huge fan of like a wire fu style martial arts. I think when done really well, like something like Crouching Tiger, I can gel with it, but I generally speaking don't like
define wire fu,
where it's like people are kind of half floating and flying around the screen. So it's like it's a very stylized version of martial arts.
I get it. I understand. Like they're hanging on wires.
Yes. So derisively, people call it wire fu. But in this case, like the opening action scene is genuinely very beautiful, not just because it's stylized in a way that I find very appealing.
Is this when his dad is fighting
his future wife?
Kingdom? Oh, his future wife. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So like that scene like really sold me on the entire concept of the movie, because not just because, oh yeah, this is martial arts as it exists in like a fantasy Marvel world. So it makes sense that their version of martial arts would be kind of like superhero
flying. Yeah.
But because it's like a generally good form of storytelling where like the Mandarin is utilizing a closed fist traditional kung fu style, while the woman is using a more open-handed, palmed, defensive counter-striking style. It's more reminiscent of Tai Chi, like that kind of like ingrained storytelling throughout the movie, where as the characters learn martial arts, it sort of reflects where they are as characters. That kind of thing really sells me. And so like, yeah, the action choreography was great, I thought. like the way it utilized like the mythology of Shang-Chi, who's not a very interesting character in my opinion. I thought the movie overall was really solid. You know, it's like, it's not going to blow you away in terms of, it's not going to change your life. But my thought throughout the whole movie is, with just a few slight edits, this could just have been released in the late 80s, early 90s as an action movie. Like, it doesn't
totally.
It does not like heavily rely on Marvel mythology necessarily. The times it does, I think, makes it fun. Where like there's an early conversation where in the typical LI movies have this thing where it's like, what are you going to do something with your life? But one character points out, we live in a world where at any given moment, half the population could just cease to exist. What are you doing with your life? And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. You know, being a 30-year-old slacker who just works as a valet kind of is more depressing in a world where life could end at any moment. What have you done with your life?
Yeah, especially I think even that line I thought was interesting because it sounded more like the narrative was grounding itself to reality, even though that particular concept is so
not
unreal. Because I was just thinking of like, when you think of our generation dealing with stuff like climate change and misinformation and Ida literally being significantly worse than anyone ever expected, it's like we're living in a world where things can just be terrible within seconds. What are you doing? Just being a valet all the time, going to karaoke. I kind of, it gave me Falcon vibes, where Falcon Winter Soldier, where like it felt like it was going to be a bit more grounded. And even my wife said she felt the first 30 minutes of the movie felt like a Raimi Spider-Man early 2000s film, where it's just sort of people and your lead character is more than human, but even though he really is just a human, but he's more than human, but just living in normal life. And I was actually on board for that, which is part of why I loved the bus fight scene so much, because it was the most grounded, even though it's this not grounded sequence. Yeah.
It's not even more fantastical. The bus fight scene is not even more fantastical than anything I've seen in some direct-to-video action movies. You know,
it's
like,
just a little more Marvel-y version of the bus fight scene in Nobody.
Yeah, there's a guy with a blade for an arm. That's the only kind of like weird thing, you know. But like, I've seen things in some like more Hong Kong style action movies, or even like some of the John Woo's films, that feel more unrealistic than some of the fight scenes in this movie, you know. And like, the first 30 minutes, this is a movie. Like, it's characters, you're being introduced to them. They have motivations, they have baggage, and outside of that one bit of dialogue about half the universe disappearing, and then later when there's like Abomination and Wong are just in the movie, like even then, like in some people forget this, in older movies where like people didn't feel the need to explain everything all the time, these are just weird characters in the background of a fantasy film. Like if you watch a direct-to-video fantasy film, there would just be weird characters pop up. And a more modern example would be like Mad Max Fury Road, where there's like driving across the landscape and there's just people on stilts for no reason. And they're never explained, and you're never told why there's stilt people in the desert. Like, that's that kind of thing. Like, this could just be a movie, you know, and that just happens to have one particular character show up from a previous film. But you know, and it sounds weird to compliment a movie for that, but like this isn't bogged down in continuity. This isn't that you don't need to watch 50 other movies to understand what's going on here. This is a really solid action film about a guy who has a really bad dad and he has to go stop his bad dad. And it's great because then occasionally something really fantastical and weird happens that gives the movie more distinct flavor. So this is like, if we're just going to quickly give our thoughts on it, like this is, I like martial arts. I like fighting. I like fun characters who are really relatable and charming. And this movie had all those things. It's when we talk about like a good popcorn flick, this is exactly what they're talking about.
Yes. And
there is some other things they do that I really enjoyed, which I think we'll probably get into when we get into more spoiler talk, that I think the movie deserves tons of credit for doing, which maybe perhaps a lesser or more controlled studio film might have not done. So, but I give it 7 iron fists out of 10 Mandarin rings. I think that works.
I really enjoy martial arts as like a form of storytelling and not just as like people punching each other. I think that's like so I've been pining to Dan. We got to we got to talk about Karate Kid. We got to talk about Karate Kid. And part of it is just because I rewatched it and it was a good time, but also because I like using martial arts as more than just you're just becoming strong to punch things. I like the idea of it's being like it's taming the body, it's discipline, it's integrity, it's control, it's understanding. Like even in just thinking of I brought up Dragon Ball, so I'll bring up both of those things. When Goku's dead, and of course isn't dead long, but is dead, and he's training with I forget the character's name, but he's on the planet that's like it's like 10 times the gravity's 10 times stronger, and his training is just go catch the monkey, and it's just like that's it. Or even in Karate Kid, it's clean my cars, but clean it in this particular motion.
Rocky chasing the chicken,
all of that stuff. I like the connectivity of when you're completing one task, it's always connected to other things. And that's just natural in life. But learning in that way and how by training the body, you're not just disciplining your body to be stronger, you're also disciplining your mind to be focused. Something even when I'm at the gym working out is I can't even listen to music when I'm doing certain exercises because it distracts me from my ability to focus and push beyond what my body is saying, don't do. So I just love that in martial arts. So I like that in this, they're using, like you said, martial arts as a motif of characters changing and developing because it's just really cool. It's to call back on a much, much older episode that I don't remember that we did where we were talking about how old rich white women are in love with stones giving them powers like an RPG. It is so much cooler that in the 80s, martial arts was what was idolized because at least it's neater to watch than just people saying, look at my rock collection. That made this movie like way more enjoyable was the training and kind of using martial arts as a form of transition and change throughout characters. I do wish, and my wife also agrees, that the martial arts was taking place more on sets than green screens.
Yes.
I think every phase of Marvel has something we complain about, I think, except for phase 1. Although we can now go back and complain about things like Black Widow being 3 different characters and not being treated well as a woman. But like this phase, I feel like the criticism that we're going to start seeing is people saying, can you use real sets, please? And can you, because like, I think
allegedly Eternals, the big thing with Eternals is that it's going to be mostly real sets and everything. So,
and like locations, because that would be really nice.
Fingers crossed.
Because like the opening scene of like the Mandarin attacking that like Roman city or whatever, it's Blood Gulch from Halo 1, where it's just like you remember like in like Red vs. Blue, the first episode. Yeah. Why do we have a fortress here? Well, because they have a fortress there. Yeah, but like what are they protecting? They're not protecting anything. They have a fortress there because we have a fortress here. Well, why do we have fortresses here? There's nothing here. Well, there's a fortress here, so that's why we need a fortress here.
Yeah, like, the castle's there so they can establish that's their spot. There's nothing particularly...
It's literally Blood Gulch. Just go rush for that rocket and you'll be fine. Like that's all Mandarin did.
It feels like Mandarin just wandered around until he saw a castle that he could conquer.
It's like, I want that one. Yeah. It's like there's just people here. This is nothing. Or like, just so much was... This was a prime movie to have like actual locations. And look, if Disney is going to be pining for the Chinese dollar, just go and shoot there. I know that they did that with Mulan and it lit them on fire because they were shooting near a bunch of concentration camps. But like, come on, pick some locations. It's just tiresome. And I think that's going to be something that people criticize because, they're introducing Mandarin and like there's people behind him in suits of armor and then Mandarin's introduced. And I'm like, he's green screened in front of another group of people who are being green screened. And it just isn't good.
Yeah. But I don't know if that's because of the pandemic or something. We could probably go look and see when they're filming. But
you can see how Disney's been really enjoying how it's cheaper to do a lot of this. I mean, it works in Mandalorian, but that's because most of the time Mandalorian has like sets set up around their dome that they use. Yes. I forget what it's called. And then the background is that way.
Mandalorian also tends to like explore big empty planets on his own. So it works for the vibe they're going for versus
absolutely
someone like this where he's supposed to be like one arm. He's supposed to be Alexander the Great or Attila Hun, and it's supposed to be like the Battle of Helm's Deep, not not somebody like CGIing him into an episode Red versus Blue.
Yeah, this is ridiculous.
It's
and
bad,
so it's not good. And I don't know. It just doesn't feel right to do that on so many different sets. It'd just be nice if, they're going to be using some of these locations several times. Why not have real sets? Like the best looking scene in the movie is when you get a flashback to like Mandarin taking his son to go kill some dudes, like in a bar or something.
Yeah,
because
like real
place. It's like a real place with real color, with real paint, and like real actors in a real room. And then that brings me to my second criticism that I have with basically this phase, and it's that we just keep getting like characters are what did I say to my wife? And I was like, that's such a good phrase. It was bloodless death. People are getting bloodless deathed all the time. And I don't know if you can use like 10 rings to crush somebody's skull, like out of just horrible murder. There's gotta be something that just says this person died and not like, I don't know, like you see it in the trailer where basically he shoots his 10 rings into someone's face. Like you're like, that dude's face is going to look like the elevator scene in Drive. Come on. Like, you got to give us something, like at least bring the rings back up and they're bloody or something. Cause like,
it's especially noticeable after watching like Suicide Squad, where like people get violently murdered and it's very graphic.
Or even just Falcon and Winter Soldier in the shows, but like Falcon and Winter Soldier uses it for one scene where like a faux Captain America effectively decapitates somebody, and you get to see that like the blood splatter on the shield adds to it, and like there is ways to do it. And I was even thinking back to just Aquaman and how like there's no real blood in the movie except like when certain characters are getting cut, there's the red mist, and it just adds more weight to what's happening, and it's much more engaging to me in terms of like, I'm not asking directors to make traumatic violent scenes. I don't need that. Like you can do that in another movie, but like I don't know. It just, I think those are going to be the two things that as we're moving forward is people are going to be like, we need real locations and you got to stop giving us bloodless deaths because it's just not working.
People want their movies to feel like they're watching a real thing happening.
Sometimes.
Yeah, to an extent. Like obviously, like if you give me something fantastical, you can get away with a lot. But like the first 30 minutes of this movie just takes place in San Francisco. This is a real grounded world with like real people.
Right.
And one of the big strengths of the film is that the stakes are kind of lower in a sense. Like there are implications of something bigger happening, but like the stakes are that it's affecting a relatively small group of people. But like it does take away from the gravity of that. Yeah, when like someone dies and it just looks like a theater production. It looks like
they just took some asprin and fell asleep.
Yeah,
like, it's just come on.
For the most part, is okay when it's just punching and kicking. But yeah, when someone's using like a super magic weapon that theoretically he could use to fight like dragons and aliens with, it's weird when he hits like one dude who's just like a 50-year-old guy drinking in a bar, basically. And he just looks like he just pushed him over. It is kind of weird.
It's annoying. It's very annoying.
It takes you out of it. It reminds you you're watching a movie, which is my main thing. Like I don't want him to pull his spine out like a Mortal Kombat like fatality. I mean that'd be kind of awesome. But like at the same time, like
Predator,
but like
he uses the rings to wrap them around his spine and then just pulls the rings out.
Yeah, like he's some sort of like a bloodbender from Avatar or something.
He's so sick. Yeah,
but yeah, like the minute you're reminded, oh, this is fake. I'm watching a fake movie with. These are actors playing characters that you don't want that.
And that's the benefit of doing at least a little. Like Kat even said in that particular scene when he like uses the rings to crush the dude's head and there's like tiny little Shang-Chi, 6-year-old Shang-Chi. Kat's like, if there was a more artistic vision behind it, you would have probably like when he says the line like blood debt for blood or yeah, whatever. You would probably see like the blood pooling at this little kid's shoes or something. And then you see, Mandarin's shoes come in. They're these bigger shoes. And it's just like, you're getting this vision of like drawing your family into you, into your sins, into your violent past. And like this movie just sort of, we were driving home and I was like, yeah, I enjoyed it, except for just sort of like that typical Marvel air that's around it. it wasn't that strong because, like you said, this movie feels pretty good. Like it could have released in the 80s because it's got like that love for martial arts going on, and it's got the fun stuff that's just like, I don't know, it's just it's fun. But then it has all this like the ending kind of felt frustrating. And I guess 40 minutes in we can open up them spoilers and stuff. But like the ending fight scene with this giant massive dragon thing, this eldritch creature, like when it's introduced, when it comes barreling through the mountain, it's like silent and you're just hearing this nightmarish creature and this dragon fight each other, and I'm like, whoa, this is like really intense. Like I'm having the shuddering experience in my body right now where I'm like, this is this giant thing that there's no way you can stop it, and your last hope is this dragon. And I was thinking like, oh my gosh, they're going to commit to like this dreadful feeling. They're going to just play the audio. Shang-Chi's going to look and see that the thing's going to the town, and it's going to be scary because it's like, this is the worst thing in the world that's about to happen. And then it starts playing like hero music that's like building up the action. And I was like, man, like you just pulled me right out of it. And I guess it's just the typical Marvel thing. Like you can't have a bloody death of any kind. So you're going to just pull out of the character. You're going to introduce a bit too much comedy. Like when he's talking about his past, and then like on the airplane, some woman asks, like he's literally talking about like, my dad trained me. And basically like, if I was able to call child services, I have good reasons to get picked up because of what my dad's putting me through in terms of training. And then right when he's about to get to the climax of his history, this dreadful history, you have this joke about there not being food on an airplane, so you're just going to have to eat the beef. Like, are we just going to play that meme where it's the little kid going, I smell like beef or something from TikTok? Like, this is ridiculous. I just don't want that, Like, this movie's doing well, and it's just pulling itself down. Because I was in it. I'm like getting real emotional because I just let movies do that to me where like, I'm like, if this movie pushes it, I'm going to start crying, man. And it just kind of gets in its own way. It's like every single movie is like every single one of these movies, when they're starting to do well, it's like someone went over and just like Kevin Feige's like, it'd be really funny. Let me tie their shoes together and then tell them to go do a fight scene or something. I just don't get it.
So to set the table, we talk about the first 30 minutes being strong. So you get like this backstory of the character, and you see that the Mandarin has 2 children, and then we fast forward, and one of them is not living up to his potential, as all great action heroes begin.
Yes.
So he's hanging out with Aquafina, and they're nearing 30, and they haven't done anything with their lives. So I deeply related to these characters, and they're hanging out, and
30.
It turns out,
I'm turning 30.
First thing I like is that they don't beat around the bush for a long time. Like literally, the movie just starts.
Yeah, it's like 10 minutes.
Characters just start attacking. Yeah.
You're like, wait, those are the scenes from the trailer. We already doing it? Like,
which is it's nice. There isn't a whole thing where like he gets flashbacks because he's amnesia and he doesn't remember that he has this grand destiny ahead of him. A wizard doesn't show up and hand him a MacGuffin to tell him that he's got stuff to do. The movie just starts.
Yeah, and it's actually the only time the comedy I felt landed is like they're fighting on a bus within 10 minutes and a dude's like, he's streaming, and it's like, hey, this actually kind of works. Like, it's just like,
I actually laughed a lot of
I did, that was very funny. And isn't he in some of the other Marvel movies? I feel like
he plays a street vendor in Spider-Man: Homecoming. He's got yells do a flip at Spider-Man. And in this movie, he's just a guy in a bus filming the fight on his phone.
So he's in New York, and then he's in San Francisco.
I don't think it's the same character. I think they just like that guy.
He moved away from New York because it's like, oh my gosh, there's always a villain destroying things. I got to get out of here.
And then it's just different. It's just there's ninjas and assassins on the bus in San Francisco. Yeah. Anytime someone's like, man, I wish I lived in the Marvel world. I'm like, no, you don't, dude.
No, you don't.
It's just a nightmare
like
world.
Worst. There's always those posts and it's like, whichever month your birthday's in, that's the world.
Would you want to live
go to the
at
bottom,
Hogwarts or Middle Earth?
People are at the bottom like, man, I wanted to be in the world with Naruto. It's like, you do not want to be in a world where someone could like sand cocoon you and kill you. Like, it's the worst, man. I don't know how people are alive in those worlds anymore. This is like, How do you have a running population?
This world we live in right
million?
now seems pretty dangerous. I don't want to raise the stakes.
How are we at 8 trillion people right now? What is it on the whole Earth population? I can't.
It's in the billions, I believe, not trillions. Or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. This didn't expect to get this pop quiz today, but
nobody expects anything.
So yeah, so it just starts. Like Awkwafina's just like, "What's going on?" And Shang-Chi's like, I gotta go, and so they just go. And thing number 2 they do that I like. So they go to the place where they have underground fights. One of them is one of the Black Widows from Black Widow who's fighting somebody in a cage. I didn't even catch that.
Yeah.
And then like Abomination and
looks
Wong.
Like a fish person now.
Yeah, he looks more and more like the comic book Abomination.
Okay. Is it just a reskin, do you think, then? Kind of like how Thanos just gets like more purple or
upgraded.
Something?
Yeah, it's kind of or they could do a thing where like his body's just like evolving. That's what they do with Killer Croc.
Or they're going to do that thing where it's like, you want to know why C-3PO's arm is red? Buy this comic. Yeah. You want to know why Tim Roth looks like a fish person? Check out this Lovecraft crossover we have.
Watch our Disney Plus limited series, 3 episodes.
Yeah.
And apparently they brought Tim Roth in just to do vocal work on the Abomination. Even though, that's an actor, baby. Yeah. And then it's implied that they do like a pro wrestling thing where they kind of like choreograph their fights afterwards.
Yeah,
like stuff like that's
really cool.
Yeah, that's like fun window dressing. And then his sister's there, and he thought she sent him a postcard, and he didn't. And both their pendants get stolen right away. And I was like, thank God, because initially it was like the pendants. I was like,
please don't do a MacGuffin. Yeah.
They need to find the 3 whatchamacallits to go to 3 different locations where they can have action scenes. Nope.
That's what I thought it was based on the title. That's what I thought. Like,
like they're going to find the rings.
The 10 rings. And I was like, how do they do that in 90 minutes? That sounds horrible.
One ring every 10 minutes. Time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they just don't. And then it's one of the criticisms we have is always like, and then it becomes a Marvel movie. This was like the inverse. You kind of get the premise of a Marvel movie, and it just stops doing that and just becomes
like Black Panther,
normal movie. Yeah,
Black Panther does that. The first 30 minutes are like a Marvel movie, and then it's a basically like a dissertation on why Warmonger's probably right. The rest of the movie, it's great.
Everyone's favorite villain, Killmonger is
Killmonger. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense, and it becomes kind of this interesting. It becomes a weird family drama, and then it becomes a weird like fantasy film. So what I like about,
I wish it stayed more family drama.
Yes, because the family drama stuff is strong. Because like turns out the Mandarin stopped being a bad guy because he fell in love with the woman. He settled down.
So great.
Yeah, he takes off the 10 rings. He's a family man, and then his past catches up to him and gets his wife killed, and that's why he becomes Mandarin again. Is because he's like filled with anger and resentment. And there's an underlying story that really connected with me, which is like it's not talked about a lot, but it's there. This element of like this like Asian heritage thing where they've moved to America, they've done something else, but
I love
like
that
their past is still there, and they're sort of wrestling with who they are in light of that. And for me, that landed. Like I really connected with that, probably more so than some people sitting in the audience did, and I really like that stuff. And so and then to add an extra layer on top of this kind of compelling story is he thinks he hears the voice of his wife calling to him, and it's in her home village where she's from. Initially, they wouldn't let Mandarin come and live with them because, he's the Mandarin and he's a bad guy. So they don't want that guy in their neighborhood, which, understandable. And so he wants to go to Ta Lo to rescue his wife. And so it's up to his children to stop him from doing that, where the movie kind of dovetails into a weird fantasy film, which I also like. It's not as strong as the family drama stuff. And here's where
it works.
It definitely works.
Yeah.
And here's where we get the other thing of the movie that I thought was great because it's one of the best uses of continuity, in my opinion, which is, do you remember when Iron Man 3 came out, Melvin? Do you remember Iron Man 3's release at all?
Yes, I do. And I remember a lot of people not liking it for a particular thing that I didn't really mind.
Yes. So Iron Man 3 is interesting because it's the first one to come out after the first Avengers movie. The Avengers movie,
yes,
we missed sometimes.
What a high
that was! It was wonderful. It's one of the best mainstream Hollywood blockbusters in a long time. Everyone saw it. Everyone I knew saw it more than once, and so everyone's pumped about the future of Marvel because now they're really into just like Marvel, the Marvel high. And so Iron Man 3 comes out, and Iron Man 3 they hired Shane Black, who's a filmmaker I really like, to write and direct it. partially because Robert Downey Jr. wanted to work with him again after Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, I like that movie a lot. And a lot of the marketing revolved around Ben Kingsley's the Mandarin. Ben Kingsley's Mandarin. And I don't know, and my friends were talking about it. There was reports from set where people gave Ben Kingsley a standing ovation after his performance. Some people were like, oh, is this the next great villain performance? And the movie comes out, and Ben Kingsley is not the Mandarin. He's an actor named Trevor Slattery who is pretending to be this boogeyman, the scare white people. And I liked it. I thought that was a great twist. I thought it played well in the politics of the time. I thought it was clever version.
Yeah.
Of course, comic book fans hated it because it wasn't the Mandarin. And for those who don't know, and the Mandarin in the comics, kind of racist. He is a kind of a racist character, and he
like his character is racist, or the concept of the character is racist.
He's a very,
or is it both?
He's very scary Asian guy, and so also Shang-Chi's father in the comics is also Fu Manchu, like literally the character Fu Manchu. Marvel licensed the rights to that. Also racist character. And so the Mandarin in the comics has kind of become an amalgam of these two things, where he's the traditional Mandarin, is kind of a mixture of Fu Manchu. And it gets a little muddy. My knowledge in this area isn't super strong. And so in this movie, they just mix the two together and make basically kind of a new. So the Mandarin in this movie is also not like the Mandarin in the comics. He shares a lot of similarities, where he's, they mix the Fu Manchu thing where he's Shang-Chi's dad, and he's also leader of an international terrorist cartel called the Ten Rings, that sort of thing. Mix all that stuff together. Anyway, so I was totally fine with him inverting that to make it where he's literally like a mascot. But fans hated it, and so they made a short called "All Hail the King."
All Hail the King,
where they reveal that the real Mandarin is out there, and so Trevor Slattery gets kidnapped, and that happened years ago, and so suddenly he's back. The kids get put in prison because they don't want to work with their dad to destroy a village. And there's Trevor Slattery again. They've been keeping him as like a court jester character, and he's kind of gone even more mad than he was previously. He's hanging out with a weird faceless creature that's one of the mythical creatures that comes from Ta Lo. And he's in the movie. Like, he's just a character from this point on. And I was so pleasantly surprised, where I thought they were going to kill him off or something, or be like a one scene cameo. Nope.
Just like I want to kill off D'Angelo, just have him show up just to die in the first time he's back. I was glad that he kind of stuck around. And I didn't quite like that he was just comedy for comedy's sake, because I don't know, I don't always find Marvel comedy very funny. I did find
it's very broad. It's very broad.
Yeah, it's sort of like it. I don't like this phrase, but it's sort of lowest common denominator. You got to hit everybody. And then, he's just there. After that, we're done. This character's alive.
It's nice because he's on screen just long enough where the novelty is fully utilized, and then they push him to the side where he belongs, or occasionally just remind you he's still in the movie, but he doesn't really do anything, which is totally fine.
The last scene he's in is basically playing dead, and then you don't see him for the rest of the movie. It would have been nice to see him show up at the karaoke at the end. Like they're singing with Wong, and then wide shot, it shows him in the corner just singing.
He's still got the faceless creature,
the little thing.
Yeah, and I like, it's one of those things like we talked about previously in an episode about like the fun of continuity and shared crossovers and stuff. I like the idea that this guy, he's introduced in Iron Man 3, and all the fans hate him, but they keep him around, and canonically he's just living in a mystical village that protects a portal to hell, and he's just hanging out there. I'm like, okay, that's great. What a character arc, what a world that these people live in. And so we get to the village, and Michelle Yeoh is there, and she's great. And then this is where you get the training montage stuff, where they teach Awkwafina how to shoot a bow and arrow. Yeah, and he learns his mother's style of martial arts. And then it does become a big schmoz at the end, where they just fight a bunch of creatures,
demons.
I really like that the 10 rings and the villagers team up. I think that's nice.
That was cute.
And we haven't really talked about the 10 rings themselves as a powerful item, superpower
as what
thing.
Another new faction in the franchise, like we were complaining about the end of Black Widow.
The literal 10 rings that the Mandarin uses as like a power thing.
What I'll say is that when the movie ends, my wife, as the credits are rolling, my wife goes, "It's going to be cool to figure out where those are from, because like these 10 rings just existed." And then the first stinger is Wong going, where did these come from?
Hey, there you
hey,
go.
my wife, yay, she called it.
Yeah, because in the comics they come from like Fing Fang Foom, which is from a race of aliens that conveniently look like dragons. They're
cool.
the ones that bring the rings to Earth. So we're not sure if they're going to utilize that as the origin.
They'll probably have it be in Eternals. It's probably leading into like, I'm assuming that it'll be Eternals will probably be like the rings are made, different nations have them, and then one guy wants to collect them, and it turns out it's our guy, the Mandarin or something. I don't know. It'll be kind of neat. Also, did I see in the Eternals trailer Wong? It looks like Wong's in there.
It'd be fun if Wong just becomes the guy who's in stuff because he literally just can portal anywhere he wants. So
But
he
like,
just becomes.
it would make sense too if he was in the Eternals, because isn't the whole thing that they're a bunch of like deities, well, aliens, but like, and then they forget who they are.
The Eternals are such a weird. First off, they're not popular characters.
They're not. Yeah,
trying to make them a thing.
I've read some Goodreads reviews for both the Kirby initial rendition, where people are at least just saying at least the art's cool, and then the Gaiman rewrite, where people are like, this is very poorly written and not very good. Although the stills look kind of neat.
They're kind of their race of creatures created by the Celestials, right? And then they just live on Earth, and they're there because there's a creature. There's one of them that lives in the center of the Earth, kind of like Gaia. It's like literally Gaia, the Earth goddess, and they can't interfere until the right time or some such thing. It's just like, I don't know. It's very confusing, and I don't find it particularly interesting, so I don't really pay attention to anything they've done.
Well, it's not interesting to introduce characters that are stupidly strong, ergo Captain Marvel. Like, it's kind of just like boring. Like, I was already thinking to myself, like, just being reminded that she's in the franchise, and this is not like flashbacks to, oh, don't like Captain Marvel, I guess you're like a misogynist or something. But like, they literally make a joke about how she's like, oh, I gotta go, and then disappears. And it's just more like eye rolly to me.
I really liked this post credit scene. If you're just going to jump to that,
I like the post credit.
I like
scene.
it a lot.
I did not like. Her screen presence brings things down for me.
I thought she was like, I was not a fan of the Captain Marvel movie. I thought this was the most charming, like, and she's been, because she showed like personality. Like, my big issue with Captain Marvel at this point is that
there's no personality. Yeah, which
is weird because Brie Larson is not a non-charismatic actor. Like, she's very likable and like interesting and everything else she's ever been in. It was very weird that she was so bland in Captain Marvel.
Yeah, I don't know why she was directed that way in that movie.
It was a very strange decision. Yeah,
it's a strange movie, but I was just thinking, like, at the end fight with Shang-Chi fighting this giant demon dragon thing, I was like, if Captain Marvel was there, she would just like fly into it a couple times and it would just die.
Well, you don't know that, because here's the thing with comic books is that they like,
there's always something
they make up rules, because it's like, oh well, like, for example, I was talking about this on Twitter actually recently, which is like, Superman is completely susceptible to magic as a thing. So like any character,
that's why Ivy can always, like, because he's just too nice, and I guess kisses people that aren't his wife, and then Ivy takes control of him.
He's awkward guy at party who doesn't want to like make people upset.
He pulls a Mordecai and he kisses Ivy on accident at the party.
Yes, great comparison, actually.
Showing how far I am in regular shows. So, we are definitely talking about that when I get done.
Timely. Actually, I don't know if they're coming up with movies or anything soon, so maybe. But yeah, so the character that they're, so for those who don't know, Talos protecting a portal to the underworld, I guess, where there's one of the fear lords is there, like the one below or something. It's a character in the comics. It's similar to Despair and Nightmare. It's one of those people. Their version is
just like, Skeletor.
Their version is very Cthulhu-esque. It's just a big giant monster thingy.
Yeah, it was cool.
It was cool. I thought it was cool. I don't know. Yeah, the fact they can mimic the sound of your loved ones, and
it would have been great if it kept talking like that. Like, it was just, it could keep communicating with them. Like, if it was trying to get Shang-Chi and trying to get all the other, like,
it doesn't.
We're definitely going to continue talking about this part, but I just wanted to, I just want more dread in these movies, and I was hoping to get that with this at the end, because it was so silent when it's introduced. Like, just to have, like, here's what I really thought there was going to maybe be like just something that like makes us think to something. Okay, this is actually in my head. It's blowing up because it's bringing up a bigger discussion I had with my wife last night. So continue with your thought and hold on,
What?
listener, because I have so much more. I just
What is happening? You can't see this, but like Melvin's like shaking, he's sweating.
I just start just profusely. I have a drinking problem. It's just like just pouring water down my face. Yeah, there's
what
a
if Mandarin fell in love with a creature? What if they got married? What if they had more kids?
Yeah, that's right. Just like Donkey and the Dragon. And
yeah, the horrible family photos they would have had.
They have the dance off at the end of the VHS for Shrek, and it's just like this eldritch creature.
Oh, taking me back. We watched that in my 5th grade like math class at the end of the year.
Dude, you gotta watch after the credits. It's the funniest thing.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
And they made it canon because the babies show up, and then they're in Shrek 2 and 3.
Just like the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh my goodness. I can't believe it. Man, they really missed it with Katzenberg. He was way ahead of his time.
Genius. But yeah.
Okay,
like,
finish your thought though, because
I don't remember
I have so many thoughts.
Yeah, it becomes a big punch up. And my main thing is they stopped doing martial arts really by the end. So like the 10 rings as a thing, I like them as a power.
They're
I like
super cool. Super cool weapon.
And it's like, it's not overpowered as limitations. Like you can kind of use them to fly, but they use them to shoot off. And I like they include the detail where Mandarin would shoot the ground before he landed to tell us an impact.
Yeah, there's that. It seems like it's not like the Thor's hammer and Mjolnir where like other people could take them. So it was neat that like the final fight between him and Mandarin, Shang-Chi or Mandarin, they're like pulling them from each other.
Yes.
And I thought that was really cool. And then you're also seeing different fighting styles where Mandarin is much more closed fist, aggressive. I overpower the rings, they're mine. Whereas like Shang-Chi's was more protective. Like
he was luring them away from him.
Like he hit the green shells, the 3 green shells in Mario Kart, and they are rotating around him.
You're losing me, Melvin.
Okay, they're like Sonic the Hedgehog when you hit the barrier and it spins around you and you can take one more hit. Yeah.
He water bends the rings away from him. It's very cool.
Which is really cool. It's awesome.
It's cool stuff. It's cool. Where you're expanding the type of characters and powers that people were using. Right. Where it's not just people are just shooting lasers at each other. They're unique objects that have unique rules, both strengths and limitations, and it's like my thought, and this is where the marketing and the system works, where I was just like, I want to see this guy interact with other characters. I want to see what Shang-Chi would do, hang out with the Avengers. I want to see him fight other types of beings. You know, I think the idea where he's like, his base thing is he's just really good at fighting, but then he also has this extra element. And I like this change where in the comics, it's literally 10 rings you wear on your fingers. And I think they changed it because it's very similar to like the Infinity Gauntlet with the gems and stuff. So, like, I think it was a good change they made, where it isn't just because it's similar to, like...
It's a cool prop.
It's a very cool prop, and it's, so, like, the OG 10 rings are similar to, like, the Infinity Stones, where they control, like, a thing, where these are just, like, its own weird thing. And, like we established in the post-credits scene, they establish that their origin is unknown. Wong states that there's nothing in the Sanctorum in their library that talks about the 10 rings. They're at least 1,000 years old, but much older. Because both Captain Marvel and Bruce Banner are there sharing their info. You know, Captain Marvel saying, well, like in the us space people don't know anything about it. And Bruce Banner is saying, well, us science people don't know what's going on. Right. And they're calling to something. There's some element inside of them. So it's neat. You know, it's neat. And the gimmick works where now I want to know what happens in the next chapter. And now I'm actually kind of wondering if Eternals will touch upon it anyway. So they got me. So I'm like, oh, I want to see what happens next. And then the post credit, that's the mid credits. The post credits is it turns out that Shang-Chi's sister did not do what she said and disband the 10 rings. She's just taken them over and she's girl bossing it up. And honestly, I was like, that's cool. I like the idea that there's just a giant terrorist organization existing in Marvel that who knows when they'll pop up next. That's one of those fun running things. And comic book stuff needs it. You need to have AIM and Roxxon and Hydra and all these groups that just exist perpetually forever.
Yeah, it's neat.
Yeah, it's what makes these movies kind of fun. And so it's a fun movie, and I don't really have a lot of things I disliked about it. It really, what we're talking about when we have criticisms, it's not living up to potential. Much like Shang-Chi himself. There's all these things where it's like, oh, it'd been cooler if the demon from hell thing did more demonic things. That would have been cool. It'd been cool if
Shang-Chi had more character. Because when I was like thinking about it today, I was like, it doesn't really have a lot in terms of character,
he has a lot of motivation, but he doesn't have
a lot of motivation.
Yeah.
Yes. But he doesn't have like any particular traits that like I could say are unique to him as a person. Even with Aquafina or really anyone else, I think the only one who has character is probably Slattery, and that's just because it's easy to make someone sound delusional and cuckoo crazy.
And Ben Kingsley's fun. He's a fun actor who will do literally anything. So
yeah,
he's great,
and he does it all very well.
He showed up at like the Hollywood premiere. Everyone's like, "Wait a minute, is Ben Kingsley back?" And so it was like spoiled on Twitter. And
it's cool.
I was like, cool. Yeah, and fun fact, Razor Fist in the comics, both his arms are blades. So they changed it to only one in the movie because that would have been kind of dumb if it's just a guy with two sword arms running around.
How does he like text somebody? He does like, can he respond to his pager, or is it just like his blade would just have a pager on it? Maybe there's a screen. He's like chopping somebody up, and then it's like he's getting notifications on his Facebook.
Maybe he can like twist it off and put like a hand on one.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, what was your thought? What was your gripped by in the middle of the night? You're gripped by inspiration.
He'd start sweating profusely. I got to write this. Got to pitch this to Feige, and then it just turns out I'm writing about episode 1, season 10 of The Office. But no, I was talking to Kat. I was like, I'm waiting for this moment. Like, we've had moments of dread in the Marvel universe, but they never last long. Like the end of Infinity War has dread, and it's like really effective, but it's also like contracts are out for the next 10 years, so we know no one's ever really gone. And so I was kind of hoping, what I would like to see in this next phase is some serious, like, you have to see something else to get it kind of mood, but only in the sense that it's something dramatic. So like, we watch Loki, we end Loki, there's a bunch of timelines now. We know that Jonathan Majors is out there ruining everything, making the world a worse place in the world. And by that, I mean, in the Marvel world, he's making the world a better place by being in more stuff and being many different characters now, because he's going to be 1,000 different things in Kang. And that should be his next movie, is 1,000 different things in Kang. But that sounds like some sort of like independent drama flick. I would watch that. That's pretty dope. And it just ends with like another Kang showing up, and it's just getting him. And the What You Say song starts playing. But
yeah, 1,000 different things in Kang sounds like a movie where it's like he has some secret, and the end of the movie it turns out he's like AIDS. Or something.
This was the world he was trying to prevent.
Yeah.
And he was patient zero for AIDS. What a really like dark ending.
It's like 12 Monkeys, but way sadder. Yeah,
way worse. Yeah, way more topical. Was not expecting that.
Yeah, by that it's like it'd be like a movie where he's like he can't connect with people.
It's him in a hospital bed at the end.
Well, it's like the whole movie, he can't connect with people. People are trying to like be like, why won't you open up to me? And he's like, I can't talk about it. And then it turns out, he's dying. And then the end of the movie, he's like,
I had AIDS the whole time.
Well, it's like he's holding hands with somebody, and it's like there's an infinite number of universes. There's so many of me, and I truly am the most blessed of them all. You know,
because I get to die.
Well, with you, you know, he's holding her hand or whatever.
It's something sweet.
Where's my movie, Feige?
I know, right? Come on. But like, knowing that like all these timelines happen, I was saying to Kat, like, what if there was like the timelines are happening, and from this mansion they're in, like a wave came out, like some sort of like pulse. It stretches out. So like Superman's pulse in the beginning of Justice League Snyder Cut, which is probably the best scene in the whole Justice League Snyder Cut, because it's so haunting and interesting and comic booky and spooky and horrific and mysterious. And then like we're watching Shang-Chi. We're here with our popcorn. We're like, I'm so excited to watch another movie that might be better than Black Widow. Yay, this is great. It's so sad that Black Widow is like kind of like the new punching bag, I feel like, of Marvel, whereas like Ultron was, and now Black Widow is.
Ultron's way better than Black Widow. I'm just going to go on record as saying that.
I think I'll have to rewatch
Shoot
Ultron.
me, internet. I'm sorry.
At least ends better. I like the conversation between Vision and that last Ultron robot.
Yeah,
I think that's really fascinating.
There's a lot of, Ultron, the problem is it's not, the whole is not as good as the sum of its parts. There's a lot of like bits. Like I like all the stuff where they're hanging out and joking around. That stuff's really great.
Ultron as a character is just really cool. And but yeah, so like we're having this final fight with this demon, right? And all this stuff's going on. But then that wave that we saw in Loki comes flowing through, and it like passes through everybody, and everyone's like, what the heck was that? Like, And so they keep fighting, but then things start happening. Figures start appearing, or I don't know, maybe another demon shows up, or maybe the demon's warping and changing and all this stuff. And so like there's this real mystery of what's going on. And I said to Kat, here's why it could work. People who have never watched a Marvel movie come into this movie recognizing it's a fantasy movie, accept that something like that can happen. 2, you haven't watched the Marvel shows, but you've watched all the Marvel movies. So you can accept that something like this can happen. So it's totally fine. 3, you've watched everything. So now when the wave passes through, your first thought is immediately going, that's the wave from Loki. And now everything's happening. And so you have this amazing, like, there's just this like catharsis of it's paying off, keeping up with everything, but also the dread of I don't know what's happening anymore. Because what's sort of been the case with all these movies is you always kind of know what's going to happen. Shang-Chi's gonna not die. You know Shang-Chi's not gonna die because he's gonna be in the other ones. Awkwafina's not gonna die because she's gonna be the sidekick that sticks around and probably becomes another hero later on. So you have all these things, like these movies are super, super familiar. So I guess like when I was watching this movie, I was sort of fantasizing of like something unfamiliar happening. So like when Awkwafina falls off the skyscraper, I was like, whoa, they're going to actually do it. Like she's just not going to be around. And then maybe they'll put her in some other way. I don't like the idea of making like the death of a woman become the important plot point for a man, because that's been the case for a bajillion things. But that's at least something I wasn't expecting. And then the sister saves her. So like whatever. So I guess like I'm fantasizing or hoping to see if like in one of these Phase 4 movies, something like that happens where like something from somewhere else totally comes in. And it's not like a Trevor Slattery showing up kind of thing where it's like, I wasn't expecting him, but more like something consequential to the story, completely changing things. Because like then you would have a scene maybe where the Mandarin escapes or something if he hadn't already been soul sucked, which was great, by the way. We didn't even talk about that, but the drama really pays off.
Yeah, so like the demon thing gets stronger the more souls that it consumes. So man, those dudes are dead.
Yeah, like
there you go.
And it's like that's all really cool. So the drama totally paid off there. But like, what if people hadn't died in time? So then he somehow gets scooped away, and now the Mandarin becomes some sort of spokesperson or like kind of the mouth of Sauron for this like demon thing. I don't know. All of that could have been really. I want something to surprise me with these movies. Is what I'm saying.
Well, get ready for Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. There's going to be some sort of weird shenanigans in one of those movies, I expect.
Yeah. In fact, I was thinking that would have been a great intro if I didn't think about The Office. And this introduction was talking about the Spider-Man trailer, which, hey, maybe that's what we need to start doing is just talk about these Spider-Man movies. Because we only have till December, like 20th or something?
Well,
18th?
the rumor was they were waiting to see how well Shang-Chi did to see if they want to delay Spider-Man. Apparently Shang-Chi has done well enough.
Oh, because of COVID 3. I can't say COVID 2 Electric Boogaloo because we've already had COVID 2.
SARS-CoV-2 is COVID was already COVID 2 kind of in a way. So
that's right. We're at COVID-19. Yeah. It's catching up to the amount of Marvel movies there are.
This is the 25th Marvel movie.
That's wild.
Isn't that crazy?
Actually, it's more because now the Spider-Man Raimi movies are canon, and so are the Amazing Spider-Man movies.
Man, I can't wait to see Spider-Man 3. It's like, oh, no. First you gotta watch
Spider-Man 8.
25 these movies. Then you have to watch these 5 other Spider-Man movies. Then you gotta watch...
is Miles Morales going to show up?
Who knows? Well, then you gotta watch 3 seasons of Daredevil. You have to watch, which includes a Defenders crossover.
That's right.
Which is what I want. I want my hobby to be so impenetrable that no one else can even talk about what I like. No one can
mock you because I am the fan of a multi-billion-dollar property. What are you a fan of?
Like, what'd you think of the new Doctor Strange movie? Like, oh, did you watch thousands and thousands of hours of other programming first, and you can't even talk to me next?
That's where I want my identity to be.
Well, it's like it's this weird line where it's like on the one hand you want something really wild out of left field to happen in one of these movies. On the other hand,
something dreadful. Like I really want something. We need to have something that doesn't just get you excited for the next movie, but maybe something like hopeful for the next movie. Give me dread now, so I have hope for the future. That's what I want. But I want it like not in these Avenger tentpole movies because you knew they were coming back.
There's totally characters you could do that with too. That's kind of the frustrating thing. Is there's like imagine if like in Spider-Man they introduce Kraven the Hunter and throughout the movie he just kills all the other Spider-Men and
not just the other Spider-Man, but like all the Aunt Mays is just killing every Aunt May one after one. You're like, oh my gosh.
Imagine just like how wild it'd be if like Tom Holland walks in a room and it's like Craven's trophy room, but he has like the heads of all the other Spider-Man characters.
And
Garfield, McGuire. He's got all the Aunt Mays. He's got like, you know, all these like need something like that. Because it's funny because like there was a character, I think it's called Scourge of the Underworld, where the reason the writers created him was just to clean up all the C and D list villains in the comics because there's just too many of them. They need something like that for Marvel, where they just have like a character who just goes through and kills all these other characters because like we don't want to keep paying these actors. We don't want to have to worry about all these like continuity stuff. Just clean it up. I'm waiting for something like that to happen. That'll be your new Uber villain because like Kang the Conqueror is cool and all, but like you need somebody who's just going to clean up this convoluted franchise. So.
Yeah,
that's my pitch, baby. That could be Carnage. Just have Carnage murder everyone. Or John Bernthal Punisher. Do it.
Why not? That'd be all fascinating. And I want to experience more than just light kind of baseline budget store brand potato chips comedy. And I want something more emotionally engaging. So yeah, give me some dread. Give me some misery. Give me some of that. I want to feel bad. I want Marvel to make me feel sick. Make me feel sick like the end of It Comes at Night. Make me feel sick.
I want to feel like that guy sitting alone at a table because everyone he loves is dead and sick or something.
Yeah, give me a bit of that.
I want to feel like that theater. Everyone was just upset because they thought they were going to watch a horror movie. Or like a horror movie, not like a horror, like the horror of human nature movie.
Give me something a little more.
You need a character who's like this, who's just absorbing the souls of all the other Marvel characters, and he gains their powers.
And not just their powers, but he like takes all the bad qualities of them. And so the whole movie is about confronting the bad stuff. So like he gets like even Tony Stark's soul, because his soul still, you could say, exists out there, and you don't have to bring back Robert Downey Jr. And then he's just like a weirdo sex pervert maniac playboy. And it's like, wow, that really was some bad stuff about him.
Well, that's kind of what Ultron was. He was just like Tony Stark. He had like a lot of the same personality traits as Tony Stark.
Yeah, he representative like Toby Stark, but like everything that was bad about him. Yeah. But like do something like that, or like
you totally could.
Tom Holland's soul. They get Tom Holland's Spider-Man soul, and it's like this villain's like, now I have an opioid addiction. I
got PTSD from being in the military.
Yeah, like I don't know, just give me something really like I don't know. I don't want to
like that for sure.
I don't want to like traumatize the Marvel fandom because it's also families and kids. Like that's I'm wary of that. And I also think that's important for directors to be mindful of is, you know, who's your demographic? Don't pull an AMC Walking Dead where the guys are like, we want to have Negan we don't want Negan to just kill some characters on our show. We want to traumatize the people who watch our show. Like that's mean. That's not nice. That's mean. That's not cool.
I mean, that definitely made me pay attention. You know, if like the movie, if like Spider-Man ends with like a guy like with a baseball bat just crushing Tom Holland's head, and it would, like, ooh, yeah. that sure was memorable.
Yeah, but it's like that's the equivalent of someone just flashing somebody else like their genitals. Like, you've got a reaction out of me. But that was wrong.
It sure would be memorable. Like, yeah,
I would remember it, but I don't want to be a part of it. Like that's
when we get to like the 45th Marvel movie, one director's going to lose his mind and be like, "You guys want something different?"
He sends the wrong cut to all the movie theaters, and it's like his vision instead. It's just like the clip that Gabe shows at the Halloween party in the office, and it's like footage of like Stanley getting into his car.
Yeah,
you're like, how'd you get this? Who was filming me? Like, that's what's gonna happen. It's gonna be awesome.
It's just gonna be a voyeuristic footage of Kevin Feige throughout his day. Just like
it's what his head looks like, because we never see what his head looks like because he's always got hats on.
He's like, what's his name? Squirrel, and the first Harry Potter movie. He's just Voldemort in the back of his head.
It's Ike Perlmutter.
No women, no minorities. You know.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Well, you could totally do a thing with Mephisto, though, like collecting the souls of all the dead Marvel characters, and then he grows more powerful as like he consumes all the characters.
Yeah,
but, like,
there's a lot of scary.
Having a literal devil as your villain might be weird for some audiences. I don't know.
We just confirmed there's a demon realm. Like that's like the part of the reason I like the first bus fight in this movie too is it had like just like it was like this banging music, man. It was like, this is awesome. Like, I'm so glad Marvel movies remember that fight scenes can be fun and not taken seriously with your string quartet. And like, I was like, this is like if I was playing Doom Eternal and you just had like some killer metal music playing while I'm ripping a demon in half. Like, get back to the fun, but then also make me feel like I don't think I can go to bed tonight. Like, I want both. Can I get both? Maybe someday, but I don't know. We'll see. We will see.
Yeah.
But anyways, what kind of recommendations do you have apart from recommending Feige be a little more risky? Yeah. What's up? What you got? What you got?
What do I got?
I don't know.
Okay. So I am once again in the midst of teaching various different groups at my church. And so I am going through, the Psalms. And so currently we're going through Psalm 23, and Psalm 23 is 9 verses, potentially one of the most famous bits of scripture in all of the Old Testament. And it's very devotional in nature. So I recommend, there's a book by Philip Keller called Shepherd Looks at Psalm 23. And Max Lucado also wrote a book about Psalm 23. And I just think I recommend both those little books, and neither of them is like exegetical, deep dig, but they're both very devotional in nature. But they both kind of dig deeply and think deeply about the implications of Psalm 23. And so in addition to recommending that you read Psalm 23 and meditate and pray on it, I think those two little short, very brief books that look at the Psalm, especially when balanced out with something like Derek Kidner's Psalm commentary or something like that, give you a good devotional look at that Psalm. Really think about the implications of what it means for the Lord to be your shepherd, what it means that with God you will not want, what it means for God to lead you to still pastures and be with you through the valley of and the shadow of death. I highly recommend that.
And for my recommendation, something totally not nearly as encouraging or even really all that important, but the awesome album by Mouse Rat is on Spotify. So go check that out. It's great. This is the greatest band from Pawnee. You got to check it out. It's got hit songs such as 1,000 Candles in the Wind from Bye Bye Little Sebastian and Sex Hair. So you got to check it out. And The Pit. They got The Pit. So yeah, the awesome album. That's it.
Wonderful.
What's your fun recommendation, Dan?
My fun recommendation. Oh man. Do I have fun?
I think so.
So I was waiting for more episodes of it to come out to see if I would, because I doubt we'll review it in any way. But so there's an animated show on Disney Plus called What If, which is alternate universe takes on Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh, we'll probably review it. I mean, why do you think we wouldn't review it? Because I keep texting and saying I haven't watched a single episode.
That and it's just like Marvel. There's just so much Marvel stuff out there. Eventually we'll just become a Marvel show talking about all the Marvel things if we try and keep up.
I think it's just because this year has 2 years worth of Marvel stuff going on. So.
Well, just to give you a little taste of it before the first season. First off, the animation is terrible. It's just horrible looking.
It did not look good.
It looks so bad. But the most recent episode, as of this recording, is the What If Doctor Strange had not lost to the use of his hands in his car accident? What if it killed Rachel McAdams? It was very good. It's the first one that's kind of felt like a Twilight Zone episode. So far, the first episode I thought was kind of the worst thing. It just was bad. But it's gotten progressively better. The third episode is an alternate retelling of Fury's Big Week, which for the MCU fans in the audience will know that is a big thing in the shared continuity of Marvel. So retelling that's interesting. And
retelling what? In the third episode?
The third episode is an alternate retelling of the Fury's Big Week, which is a big event thing from Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's an official canon tie-in comic that they released that ties all the events together of what happens when Nick Fury assembled the Avengers. So it's a bit of a deep cut for the fans. So it's a retelling of that. It's a third episode. The Marvel Zombies episode comes out this week, so we'll see how that is. It's fun. It's a fun, enjoyable little cartoon. It's not too serious. Don't think about it too hard. The animation is just the pits, but it's pretty fun. And so it's kind of my mini review / hey, if you got nothing else to do on a Wednesday, watch this 35-minute cartoon. So there you go.
Thanks so much for checking out this episode of Cinematic Doctrine. If you enjoyed this episode, consider leaving a review and subscribing to the podcast. And as mentioned before, Cinematic Doctrine has a Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you're opted into a once-a-month movie poll where you decide a movie we discuss on the podcast. There are other unique benefits that come with supporting the podcast, so be sure to check that out at patreon.com/Cinematic Doctrine. A special shout out to those who support at the Art House Theater tier on Patreon. Thank you so much, Mom, Dad, Melanie, Shirley-Ann, and Thomas. You guys are the best, and your continued monetary support is greatly appreciated. Until next time, stay cool. Want some Cinematic Doctrine swag? You're in luck. We've got 3-inch Cinematic Doctrine logo stickers exclusive for Patreon supporters. Perfect for your travel mug or laptop. Head over to patreon.com/Cinematic Doctrine, link in the show notes, and choose the Independent Theater tier. Doing so will net you other perks too. But let's be real, the podcast stickers are the coolest perk. So get yourself some podcast stickers by supporting on Patreon.